Kia ora, welcome to Under the Checkered Flag, MotoGP edition. I'm your host Kate, and we're just going to jump right in.
It is Kate and PozzA here, and Kelly will be joining us later in the episode because we thought as we were, a little bit into the season now, we would think it'd be a good time to stop and reflect on riders who are exceeding expectations or falling short. But Poz and I want to discuss some of the championship regulation changes that have just come out. Before we do get started on that, we just want to say from everyone in the podcast, our thoughts and hearts go out to Shane Richardson and Owen Jenner's friends and family, and the wider British Superbike paddock for the incident in the British Supersport Championship race this morning. It can definitely be a cruel sport sometimes, and we do what we can to make the sport safer. And following the Jerez Grand Prix and test, we've seen updated regulations released. I will drop a link to these down below so that you can see all of the regulation changes, but we thought we'd just touch on a couple of the changes, with the first being the rule that I certainly didn't expect to be implemented until next year. This rule is that permanent MotoGP riders who have missed a considerable number of events/days, which is specified as 3 or more consecutive events, or have been unable to participate in 45 consecutive days, will be able to have a single day of testing before rejoining the championship. It's definitely a surprise. As I said, I thought this was going to be implemented at the end of the year, but I'm definitely a big fan of this rule, and anything to help the riders determine if they're fit is a good thing, in my opinion. What are your thoughts, Poz?
Yeah, just thinking about it now, I have a feeling the reason that they didn't wait until next year to introduce it could be because Martin got injured again, and at some point he'll have to sort of go through the whole getting back to race fitness and yeah, making his return. So I feel like it could be sort of because of that situation that'll have to happen at some point later in the year. But yeah, I still think it's a good idea. Obviously, it can give riders the chance to sort of test out if they're properly race fit, and I think that's always a good thing for safety.
Yeah, I definitely would be inclined to agree that this probably did get brought forward because of the whole Martin situation. The good news is it does look like his recovery is progressing pretty darn well from the latest update, so hopefully that continues for him. But I still definitely don't want to see him back before the summer break. The other rule change comes, no doubt, as a direct result of the shambled start at the Circuit of the Americas. This sees the rules clarified around changes to the bike on the grid. If a change is made to the bike after the 3-minute board, a rider and team must be clear of the grid and pit lane before the 1-minute board is displayed, and they can take their published grid position after the warm-up lap, but must serve a double long lap penalty. The fact we have had to update this rule is quite entertaining but not surprising, given how messy that start was. Poz, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I'm not surprised that there's been a rule change in that aspect. Obviously, it's not great to see a start like that. I mean, it's entertaining for the fans, but if it's happening every other week when a wet race is happening, it probably won't be the best to see. And as the point was at the time, it somewhat screwed over the likes of Agura and I think it was Bastianini and maybe one or two others that did make the right call and would have gone on to get good results. So I'm absolutely not shocked that the rule's been tweaked to sort of penalise anyone who does pull what Mark pulled. But yeah, I also have the feeling that a situation like that's probably not going to happen again, just because it seems like it's one of those one-off things. But yeah, I think it's a pretty solid rule change.
Yeah, it's one of those, I don't know, 1 in 10-year events, and they're never going to be able to write the rules absolutely perfect for these sort of situations where it just gets a bit bizarre. So for the mid-season, well, I call it mid-season, we're possibly a quarter of the way through the season. So we figure, yeah, let's take some time to stop and reflect on riders throughout all 3 classes who are exceeding expectations or falling short. I'll kick us off with Moto 3, and the rider I thought would be doing better is Eddie O'Shea. I do feel a bit harsh because he is still classified as a rookie, but he was there at the end of last season, and I expected some points by now, if I'm honest. I know MLev isn't like the best team on the grid by a long shot, but I did definitely expect points. What's yours for, oh, someone you thought you'd be doing better in Moto3?
Yeah, I feel I've probably gone for a bit of a like really easy choice here, but I feel like it's probably the sort of most obvious option, and I know Kelly's gone for it as well. But it's David Munoz for me. Obviously, we always go into these seasons thinking that he'll be a title contender and that he may have sort of calmed himself down and start riding more responsibly. And it just seems like yet again that hasn't happened yet. I think he's only just scored some points in the last race or something. I'm gonna check that. Yeah, he's got 10 points, so it's quite far behind where I feel like everyone sort of expects him to be. And overall, it's just been kind of a messy start to the year for him.
The person who's let me down the most, which pains me so hard to say it, it's actually causing me a bit of a heart attack to even say it, but it's David Munoz. He just hasn't performed to the level that he's been. We know he's quick, but he's too aggressive. He doesn't understand the concept of just being safe and having a safe race. It's either flat out and dangerous, or he doesn't score any points, and it's just really disappointing and not the standard that he should be at. But for the person who surprised me the most, I wouldn't say surprised, but for the best job, I'd say Jose Antonio Rueda. In every race that he's led, he's been completely consistent. He's led it by miles and has won it. I think he's a serious, serious contender for the championship this year, and is my best chance at getting some points in my podium predictions. So, yeah, he's just doing really well, and I hope he wins this season because I think he's very well capable of it.
The Moto3 rider that I think is performing better than I expected them to is Scott Ogden. So I did expect him to struggle a bit more switching teams. He's definitely a lot stronger than I expected him to. I don't know if that's because MLab as a team wasn't the right fit for him.
Yeah, I had a few names that I considered for this. A few of the rookies, the likes of Guido Pini and Cormac Buchanan, I was sort of considering. But at the end of the day, I've gone for the MTA level up riders because the team last year, I don't think they scored they wouldn't have scored a podium. So the fact that Joel Kelso's right up there pretty much every race weekend, and before he got injured, Matteo Bertelli was absolutely rapid in qualifying and took a podium just before he got injured. I think they've been really impressive, and obviously it'd be great to see Bertelli come back from injury as soon as possible so we can get back to performing as strongly as he was. But yeah, I've gone for the MTA riders.
Looking at Moto2, I do feel really guilty for this one. The rider I thought would be doing a lot better by now is Sergio Garcia. This is through no fault of his own. He's had injury woes and his injury's not been healing correctly, so he's been out for a lot of the season. It's super disappointing for me as a Garcia fan, and I just really hope that he can recover fully and well and have a strong second half of the season like the first half of the season went last year, because he's such a talented rider and I adore introverted riders because I can relate to them, not being a people person.
Yeah, he was one of the names that I had down as a sort of potential option along with Joe Roberts, just because of their injuries that they've been suffering from and sort of holding them back. But I've decided not to judge them on that because it's not particularly their fault. So I'm going to go with Tony Arbolino just because everyone. It's sort of the same thing with Munoz, just aside from the fact that Arbolino isn't wiping someone out every other weekend. So yeah, I've gone for Arbolino there just because I feel like he's on the bike that won the title last year. Everyone sort of expected him to be at least fighting for podiums most weeks. Thus far, he's only done it in wet conditions. And yeah, I just don't really think he's personally doing enough to warrant getting the Pramac ride for next year in MotoGP. But it's a long season, so he's got a bit of time to turn it around, hopefully.
For the person I'm least impressed with, I'd have to say Tony Arbolino. I think this is a general consensus, but for somebody who's rumoured to have a Pramac ride for 2025, he's not performing at all. He's very, very slow. He's out of the points some races and he's just not performing to the level he should be. So, not very impressed, and hopefully he can do a little bit better this year.
A rider that is definitely exceeding my expectations in Moto 2 is Barry Baltus. I don't know why I just expect him to be mid-pack pretty much all the time. And I suppose he's just been at the front of the mid-pack. This year he's currently 4th in the championship and he's got 53 points, which is definitely more than I expected him to have. He is still 33 points behind the championship leader, sorry. But I just think he's gelling with Fantic Racing quite well. And yeah, we're all Barry Baltus fans. I don't think I've met someone who isn't a Barry Baltus fan. And if you're not a Barry Baltus fan, I'm afraid that you're wrong, because you should be.
Yeah, it's definitely good to see what Barry Baltus can do on a more current spec bike, as he was on a year-old bike at RW Racing. So yeah, always good to see him up there doing well. Personally, I've gone for Danny Holgado, just because we know how much I enjoy seeing the rookies do well, and seeing a rookie adapt this quickly from the Moto3 to the Moto2 bike is generally a sign that they're a pretty good rider. Mind obviously goes to the likes of Pedro Acosta and a few of those other riders that have done that. So I think it's really positive to see someone make that jump so quickly, and I wouldn't at all be surprised if we see Holgado in a few shouts for a MotoGP ride in the next 2, 3, 4 years. So yeah, I've gone for Holgado.
Yeah, the only reason I didn't put Holgado is because I was pretty confident at the start of the year in our prediction podcast that he was going to take Rookie of the Year. But he's definitely had an incredible start to the season, and it's really good when we get the rookies up the front.
Person who actually impressed me the most, it might not come as a shock to you, but it may to other people, I'm going to say Colin Vire. He came into the season as a rookie that people didn't really expect to do as well as like David Alonso and Daniel Holgado. And although he wasn't as fast as Daniel Holgado, he was actually on the level of David Alonso. He's adapted quite well and has actually started scoring points, even though Holgado was like miles in the future. But he's a lot better than people think he is, and I have a lot of faith for him this year.
Looking at MotoGP, now there's quite a lot of options here, and I know I've gone for the obvious one, and someone who I definitely thought would be doing better this season is Raul Fernandez. We've touched on it in the podcast already this year, probably in races where he's underperformed, but he's getting outscored by his rookie teammate by quite a lot, and Agura has had a disqualification this year. He's the one who's been on the Aprilia the longest, and he is just nowhere. I'm really disappointed because I think he's quite a fun guy and a fun personality, but he just really needs to put in some results. Otherwise, he'll be gone really soon because he's just had so much time on that bike and something's not working. So hopefully he can pull something together.
Yeah, he was an option that I considered, but just to be different, I'll go with the other one, which is KTM. And I know that people will probably be saying, like, oh, with the financials, we kind of expected them to not have a great year. But I feel like it's just been a little bit messier than I was sort of thinking it would be. I don't think in the recent races any of the riders have been on the same spec of bike. So they've all been running 4 different KTMs. And Enea Bastianini, I think just after Qatar, came out saying that Maverick Vinales has some special parts that the other riders have almost been like forbidden from using. They haven't been given access to it. So yeah, I feel like that's just, obviously they're not going to be doing immensely well, but I feel like when all your riders are sort of running different parts and not being particularly competitive for some of them, it's just not great to see.
For somebody who's underperforming to my expectations, I'm going to go with a full team or manufacturer as you want to think about it, and I'm going to go with Aprilia. I expected a bit more, especially with their rider lineup in both Jorge Martin and Marco Bezzecchi. Now, of course, Jorge Martin is very extremely injured and likely will not be back even before the end of the year, possibly. So I'm going to rule him out, but I expected a lot more from Marco Bezzecchi, and it just seems like that Aprilia is just not capable of being ridden. It looks dangerous, it looks unreliable. Like, with that Aprilia, you either expect like fastness or reliability, and even then it doesn't seem like it has either of those most weekends. It's just looking really, really bad, and they've really underperformed. The only person who's looking somewhat good is Ayagura on that Trackhouse Aprilia, and even then he's almost nowhere most races. So I'm really, really hoping that gets better soon.
The rider I have for doing well in MotoGP is Maverick Vinales, because I didn't expect him. I don't know why I didn't, and this is just me underhyping Maverick Vinales, which I just seem to chronically do. But he's been really strong this season. He's adapting to his fourth manufacturer super well. He's not got the best at points, but let's not forget he got done for tyre pressures earlier this year. I'm just super happy that Mav's up there, and even though, as Poz mentioned before, it does sound like he is getting some preferential treatment at KTM, or Tech 3, I should say, I just think it's really great to see him at the front and fighting, and I'm definitely hoping he can get his fall from fall very soon.
Yeah, I honestly almost put his teammate, Enea Bastianini, just because I feel like he's sort of been flying under the radar. He's only, I think, 5 points off Pedro Acosta as the top KTM. And yeah, I feel like he's just been, as I said, flying under the radar, scoring the points when he needs to. And I feel like that's kind of gone unnoticed. But I've gone for Franco Morbidelli. Just honestly, it could just be because I'd say I'm a Morbidelli fan. I expected him to be doing like well. Obviously, still on the GP24, a handy bike, and with a team that'll obviously be supporting him as part of the VR46 Academy. But I honestly wasn't really expecting him to be this close to the podium pretty much every week this far. And I think that's just great to see, because I think he's a really likeable rider when he isn't getting in other riders' way. But yeah, I think it's great to see Morbidelli doing well this year.
I am going to go with Fabio Quartararo and Yamaha. They really did better than I expected, considering last year where they were really low down the field. They were quite slow. There seemed to have been a lot of crashes. It just wasn't really working for them. And this year you can see they've made so much progress on their bike in both updates and just rider capability. Even though Alex Rins has unfortunately suffered a good few injuries, which really doesn't deserve. I hope he recovers soon. Fabio Quartararo is carrying that team on his back, and he's doing it extremely well considering his podium last time out. So I'm hoping that will carry on a little bit into the rest of the season, but it's looking positive. It's looking up for Yamaha, so I'm really excited about that.
So that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below if you guys completely disagree with some of our exceeding expectations, or there's people below expectations that we didn't mention. But now we're going to look forward to Le Mans, because it is time for our predictions. Now, a quick standing update. I'm still in last place, which does not surprise me in the slightest. I'm on 162 points. Kelly's on 164 points. Poz is on 174 points. And Andrew's still winning on 183.5 points. Yes. But my Moto 3 predictions for Le Mans: in P3, I've gone for Yamanaka. In P2, I've gone for Fernandez. And in P1, just based on recent form, I've gone for Rueda. My reserve is Angel Piqueras, just because this isn't his best track. So I'm hoping that it's just he keeps that form that he's got going on at the moment. And yeah, hopefully I don't need him, but he's there if I do.
For my predictions, I have actually decided to go with generally what I had before. So for Moto3, in third I have Joel Kelso, in second I have Angel Baqueras, in first I have Jose Antonio Rueda, who every single time I put in first has pretty much won, so pretty positive for me. And then as my reserve, I've switched up a little bit to Fernandez. I think he's quick enough. He'll get me some pretty good points if something does go wrong.
But I've gone for Adrian Fernandez in third, just because I think I looked at the results and he was the top rider in the race last year that is still in Moto3 this year. So I think he'll probably be in and around the leading group, ideally. And as for the top two, it's the same as it is in the championship. I've gone for Angel Piqueras in second, with Rueda winning the race, hopefully, just because he seems to win every race. Oh, he seems to win every race. I don't predict him, so hopefully I'm not cursing him in that aspect. And as my reserve, I've gone for Ryusei Yamanaka, just because of how strong it was last year. I believe he finished sixth. Yeah, he was in and around the leading group anyway, so I think he'll be in for another pretty solid race this week. Moving on to Moto2, again, it's another pretty unchanged top three, top four even for me. In P3, I've gone for Celestino Vietti, just because he always seems to recover his weekends from sort of a slow start on Friday, and he always seems to get somewhere into the points if he doesn't crash. So I think he'll have another weekend like that. And top two, I've gone for Aaron Canet in second, as I generally do, just because he always seems to finish around about there if he doesn't win. And to win, I've gone for Manuel Gonzalez, just because I feel like it's really hard to bet against him with how strong he's been in the last few races. So he'll definitely be up there. And once again, as my reserve, I've gone for Dennis Onchu, just because he's been strong in the last two races. And yeah, I think he can be in the fight. Hopefully he can.
Moto2, I have in third place Diogo Moreira, second place Aaron Canet, and first place Manuel Gonzalez, with my reserve in Celestino Vietti.
For Moto2, my reserve is Aaron Canet. I don't have him on the podium this time out. I know last year he was injured, so I can't really, compare it to last year. For my third place, I've gone for Dennis Onchu. I think, given his form recently, I think he'll be pretty strong. I'm hoping so anyway. P2, I've gone for Jake Dixon, and all three of us have gone for Manu Gonzalez in P1. He's just so strong at the moment. It's pretty hard to bet against him. I think if anyone's going to challenge him consistently this year, it is going to be Canet, but I just don't think Le Mans is going to be Canet's track. For MotoGP in the sprint, I feel like we're pretty much all going to go for the same thing here. Our reserves might change, maybe. So P3, I've gone for Pecco. P2, Alex Marquez. And P1, Marc Marquez. And for my reserve, I've gone for Maverick Vinales.
As you have predicted before jumping into yours, I have gone for the exact same top three in the exact same top order. And my only difference is my reserve. I'm going for Franco Morbidelli once again. Just because, yeah, he's been doing really well this year. So hopefully that continues.
For MotoGP Sprint, I have Pecco Bagnaia in third, because that just seems to be his new favourite spot. Second place, I have Alex Marquez, and in first place, I have Marc Marquez. Wow, shocker. And as my reserve, I have Frankie Morbidelli, who seems to have found his form a little bit.
Now, I suspect that the three of us done the same thing. I could be wrong, though. Poz could prove me wrong here, but I've gone for the exact same thing on Sunday that I have on Saturday. I think it's the podium that we're just going to see throughout the season. Pecco P3, Alex Marquez P2, and Marc Marquez in P1. I haven't even changed my reserve. I've gone with Maverick Vinales for P4 reserve for Sunday as well.
And I have done the exact same thing, going the same as in the sprint. So yeah, Bagnaia P3, Marquez 1-2, led by Marc, and Morbidelli is my reserve.
In the MotoGP feature race for third, I have Pecco Bagnaia again. Second place, Alex Marquez again. And first place, Marc Marquez again, as always. And as my reserve, I've gone with Fermin Aldeguer, who seems to have found his pace a little bit, so hopefully that will remain positive.
Very predictable we are when it comes to our podiums in the MotoGP class. Poz said in our group chat, and I have to agree with him, I kind of wish more riders were in contention this year because it makes the predictions more exciting when that's the case, when you can throw in, I don't know, I was going to say an Alex Marquez, an Alex Rins or something like that. But for now, we'll just remain predictable while we're all still bunched up in the points. As always, thank you so much for listening, and apologies for the delay this week. We'll be back on Monday next week, recapping the Le Mans Grand Prix.